going to want certain things from you. But appeasing them does not lead to happiness. You just have to do what's right for you and what makes you happy.
Welcome to episode 17 of Upvoted by Reddit. I'm your host, Alexis Ohanian. We hope you enjoyed last week's episode on Sebastian DeWitt and Stuart Philkill's epic motorcycle journey to Alaska. I also want to mention that the Teespring campaign to raise money for another Doge car ended last Thursday. Now, we didn't raise enough money to completely sponsor the Doge car at Daytona, but we did sell 504 shirts and raised $6,500, every penny of which is going to that racing team to hopefully get a Doge car at Daytona. Now, we also got some news this week that Josh Wise, the famous driver of said Doge car and the star of the previous episode of Upvoted featuring Doge car, has actually been traded to another racing team. So in the event that the Doge car does come back to NASCAR, Josh will not be driving it, which I know is a downer for a lot of folks. I, including myself, I really enjoyed the interview with Josh. But we still could end up seeing the Doge car on the track at Daytona. It just won't be with Josh Wise behind the wheel. You should join in and partake in the discussion on r/NASCAR. That's where I learned about the news. And if you haven't already, listen to episode 14 called To the Moon, which is all about Josh Wise and the story of Doge car, which is still a very awesome story, and I hope it can get back on the track. It'll still be just as awesome even if Josh is not behind the wheel. Something else that happened this past week was a really tragic earthquake in Nepal. And a very important part of Reddit has always been our desire to be more than just a company. And in 2010, actually one of the last blog posts that I wrote before I left, since come back, but one of the last things I remember working on at Reddit was a fundraiser for the victims of the earthquake in Haiti. And back then we raised a little over $185,000 for a nonprofit called Direct Relief to help the people of Haiti. And so we're calling on everyone, again, to help raise funds now for the victims of this recent set of devastating earthquakes in Nepal. Over 5,000 people have died and many others are in very serious need of help. And we recently put up a blog post on r/blog to raise money for these victims. Now this time we worked with two nonprofits, both equally 4-star nonprofits on Charity Navigator, exceptionally high marks for transparency and efficiency, things that are important to us and we know are important to all of you Redditors. And wow, you all certainly responded. Our goal was to raise as much money as we raised 5 years ago for Direct Relief in Haiti, at $185,000. We raised it in 24 hours. You all blew us away, so thank you. And the folks who are running these nonprofits were also just floored. Members of MAP International as well as Direct Relief also recently did AMAs to explain everything about what's going on, how they're using their funds. So I highly suggest checking out those as well. We were floored and just humbled by the response coming from Redditors all over the world who wanted to help the people of Nepal. So thank you. Now, before we get started on this episode, if you haven't heard episode 11, which is part 1 of the Huck and Rin story, please stop this podcast. I'll be here when you get back. Go back and listen to that episode. You will not regret it. Okay, if you're still with me, there's one more thing I wanted to address about part 1. You see, after that episode with Huck came out, many of you fell in love with his story. I mean, seriously, the comments were so incredibly effusive about this particular episode. You all loved hearing of all of his vagabonding tales. And even a few of you offered him work, a place to stay. Most of all, there was just a huge demand for a part 2 of the Upvoted podcast with Huck. And we were more than happy to oblige. However, others looked deeper into Huck's post history and brought a lot of that history to the attention of the r/Upvoted community and those of us specifically who work on this podcast. What was really shocking were several racist posts that Huck had made several years ago on the sub r/I'm going to hell for this. One was a picture of a black man smoking crack with a title saying, quote, I'm black. Here's a picture of my dad from the 1970s, unquote. Another told a joke between the difference of black men versus N-words, and the last was a picture entitled, quote, darky in a watermelon. This was very difficult to understand, and our team had already recorded this episode that you're about to hear before seeing these comments, and honestly, at first, we did not know what to do, so we ultimately decided to just ask Huck about it and address it before the episode came back. So, Here it is.
Yeah, there's been a few comments I made in the past. It's been brought up recently, and they're really terrible, terrible posts that I deeply regret. It was my failed attempt at being a comedian, and I should probably just stick to being a hobo. And I'm really not a racist. I did not mean any of that stuff, and I deeply regret it. You know, that's stuff that I wrote years ago on a subreddit that I don't even visit anymore because it's just a horrible subreddit. So, yeah, I apologize to anyone that I may have offended. I can definitely understand how it offends people, and I do not mean in that way, and if it's taken that way, I deeply regret it. That stuff shouldn't be used to like judge me overall as a person. If you look through my entire comment history, you'll see I'm a pretty cool guy.
Unfortunately, Huck is not unique, and it's ultimately not on us to judge him. I know one of the hardest things to change is a person's belief systems and habits, and as difficult as it may be, positive change can really only arise out of conversations like this and trying to educate one another. And that's something that we feel that especially right now with everything going on in Baltimore. I grew up in the suburbs just outside of it, and to see the photos and videos of a city I used to know really well has been difficult. It's been even more difficult to see how some of these discussions unfold online, all over, including Reddit. And I know before I turn this introduction into an entire dissertation, I just want to point everyone to a comment made by a Redditor named Mock-2, about his experience with internet racism. He describes these two polarizing sides of internet discussions that tend to emerge, especially around these kinds of issues. And it's an amazing comment. He talks about systemic racism, all kinds of things. It ended up being, I'm pretty sure, the most gilded comment of all of the comments on Reddit about the protests in Baltimore. And it's absolutely worth a read. He put a lot of work into it, clearly. It's not a quick read, but it's worth reading. And with some luck, we'll actually get him on the podcast for a future episode. But it's an incredibly profound comment. Lots of Redditors liked it so much they were willing to pay money to super upvote it, so to speak, with a gilding. So I think it's worth checking out, and we've included it in this episode's show notes as well. And fun fact, for those of you who subscribe to Upvoted Weekly, which is our weekly email digest of hand-curated best of Reddit that you may not have seen on Reddit during the week, this one link was the most clicked on link in the entire digest that dropped this past Sunday. So it's clear between all the gilding and all the clicking that there were a lot of Redditors who really enjoyed it. But please read for yourself, and then as always, join us on r/Upvoted to discuss this episode as well as every episode and every newsletter we do. We want to hear from you. Okay, all right, so without further ado, here's part 2 on the story of Huck and Rin, right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Harry's. Harry's is so serious about their shaving products while also still respecting your face and wallet. Their kits come with handcrafted, high-quality German blades at a fraction of the price of big red razors. And the starter set is a great deal. For $15, you get a razor, moisturizing shave cream, and 5 razor blades. But don't take my word for it. A Redditor named Rio Safari responded with this quote to a post in the Gay Bros subreddit about users' favorite online shops for male fashion. Quote, Harry's was co-founded by the Warby Parker guy and has a magnificent aesthetic. Their Truman set is hands down the best shave for the money that doesn't involve a barber. End quote. Rio Safari is referring to Jeff Rader, and although we're not yet friends on LinkedIn, Jeff is clearly someone who deeply cares about shaving, craft, and aesthetic. Prior to starting Harry's, Jeff and his co-founder traveled all over the world looking for the best razor manufacturer ever, before settling on those classy German blades. So, go to harrys.com now, and they'll give you $5 off if you type in the coupon code UPVOTED with your first purchase. So, start shaving better today. That's harrys.com, coupon code UPVOTED.
Hey everybody, this is user Hucksta over at R Vagabond, and this is the second part of my story on the Upvoted podcast.
Before we get any further, it is difficult to get great audio quality. No matter what the circumstances are, trust me, we try really hard to get this right, and some of you always let us know if we don't. But the lengths that Huck went through to make this work are incredible.
I'm recording this episode pretty much the same way that I charge my phone or do anything else that involves electronic digital devices. Is I come to a coffee shop This coffee shop right here is letting me use the back room of their cafe to record. They're letting me use their laptop. They're letting me use their headphones. They're letting me use their Wi-Fi. And the microphone that I'm talking to was given to me by somebody else. And the guy that's doing the actual recording is just a local friend that happens to be like a tech guru. And he said he would help me out with this project just to help out a traveler. And so everything is pretty much being done by the coffee shop and a local citizen here that wanted to contribute.
Okay, so let's get right to your burning questions for Huck. On the subreddit, a user named Chester182, that's CHSTERR182, said, quote, I love this podcast. This was truly amazing. A part 2 would truly be amazing. I would love to hear about him maintaining a girlfriend/sexual relationships, end quote. From talking to Huck, it sounded like this was the least of his problems.
One of the most popular questions I get on the subreddit or on the AMAs or anything is people want to know, can I get laid on the road? What are the romantic situations like on the road? And it seems to be, men seem to be more worried about that than finding a job or beating themselves. They want to know what it's like getting laid. From my experience and from the experience of my fellow travelers, it's been extremely easy if you want to get laid on the road. There's a lot of women out there that kind of view this lifestyle in some sort of Jack Kerouac or Chris McCandless or Ernest Hemingway type of thing. They just have this really, really romantic stereotype of us. And I think we're kind of like looked at as more like wild or sort of the ultimate bad boys of society or something like that. And some girls, I think they just want to piss their fathers off or piss their ex-boyfriends off or something. But, we get laid just as much as if we were in normal society. I guess it just depends on who you are and how you present yourself. If you sit there and you're bumming for vodka and you look like crap, no girl's going to want to get with you. But if you're sitting there and you've got honest clothes on, you seem like an honest person, and you've got a lot of crazy stories about on the road, girls are extremely attracted to that.
Nowadays, these times are far behind him. Huck has been dating the love of his life for several years. She actually lives in Argentina. It's kind of crazy to think that Huck has actually had the opportunity to travel to South America.
I met my current girlfriend through a mutual friend that we had, and we've been together now for 5 years. The only time I take time off the road is for about 3 months out of the year, and that's when she comes over to visit me or when I go to visit her. And she has lived with me in Hawaii for 3 months. She lived with me in Alabama for 3 months, and she lived with me in Santa Barbara, California. So going to Argentina was really cool. It was nice and refreshing to get out of kind of this closet American culture that exists in America. Down in Argentina, people are, I think, a little bit more worldly and more cultured than in the USA, so that was kind of refreshing.
As he said in the previous episode, he wants to someday settle down, but doesn't ever want to stop traveling.
We've talked about that, like our long-term plans, as far as a relationship goes, in contrast to my traveling. And she's totally down to travel for the rest of her life, too. I mean, now, of course, this doesn't involve hopping trains or hitchhiking a lot. That's not her style of traveling, and I completely understand that. So what we want to do is just travel the world. We want to live in different countries and kind of, make a career out of it, like teaching English overseas. After 11 years of traveling, I've earned my stripes. I've slept in my tents. I've slept in the ditches. I've worked in these farms, so I don't have any problem with getting off the road and doing a more luxurious form of traveling that people would call like backpacking or tourist traveling or whatever.
Personally, one of the things that has fascinated me the most about Huck's story is his use of technology and how incredibly resourceful he is.
I would like to talk a little bit about how digital technology has changed our culture. Newsweek just interviewed me about this subject, and so did Vice, the documentary crew. Both of them did a special interview with me just in the past couple of weeks that pertain to how digital technology has affected our culture. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of people under the belief that hobos are anti-technology or anti-society, as if we're like trying to completely escape what we consider civilization or whatever. That's just not true. That's just a stigma that's come along with our lifestyles. To put into example for you, just for hobos, hobos walked for years and years, for probably the past 5,000 years of human history. When humans invented trains, we were the first ones to jump on those boxcars. When humans invented automobiles, we were the first ones throwing our thumbs up. We're not anti-technology. We're not anti-society. In fact, we're quite the opposite. We just use technology and society in sort of, I guess you would call it, guerrilla ways. To put into context how much it's changed our subculture for 50 years of hobo history, we didn't find jobs using Craigslist. We went store to store, or we went to farms and asked directly. When we were looking to see where the highway went, we didn't have Google Maps. We had paper maps, and really, most of us didn't have any paper maps at all. We just kind of had to, go by our gut or ask people at the local store, hey, where does this highway go? And things like that. Also, when we were finding travel partners, we didn't have our Vagabond or Squat the Planet to go to find this. We had to do this on the road. So you're talking about 150 years worth of hobo history has changed in just the past 10 years alone. Most of us have smartphones. Most of us have little ebook readers. I myself carry a railroad digital scanner so I can listen to railroad frequencies. It's a portable handheld scanner that picks up emergency radio, weather radio, FM radio, and it also picks up the communications of railroad traffic. So I have mine preset to railroad frequencies and I put it on scan. And when I do that, I can hear pretty much everything that's going on in the train yard, everything about each individual train in the yard, when it's leaving, what it's doing, where the bull is. If the bull has been reported to me, I can know ahead of time, and so I just jump off the train before the bull can even get to me. I use a digital scanner. I'm not the first hobo to do it. In fact, I learned it from other hobos that have been doing it, and I think most hobos have really kind of grasped that technology in the past decade alone.
So, if you're like me and are not familiar with what the term bull is referring to, we asked Huck to explain that to us.
The bull is a security guard, and his sole intention is to find train hoppers. The workers in the yard, the people working the tracks, and the conductors and engineers are usually our friends. But when it comes to the bull, he's paid for one thing, and that's to kick hobos out of the train yard or kick us off of the train. So, it's an enemy relationship between bulls and hobos. Earlier in American history, as of like 60, 70 years ago, they used to actually physically assault hobos. They'd beat you with sticks and rough you up real good. Today, in a more politically correct society with a lot more surveillance and legal access, bulls won't even touch you with their hand now. They just write you a ticket, or they'll call the cops and have you put in jail, which doesn't last very long. But that's our enemy, is the bull. And you want to know, every time that I get into a train yard, my first thing is to find the bull's office. I want to find his vehicle, and I want to find his office. After that, I'm going to go sit outside the train yard, and I'm going to sit there, and I'm going to spy on that vehicle, I'm going to spy on that office. I'm going to know what his routine is. I'm going to know what his patrol area is. I'm going to know how long he sits in his office, how long he patrols. And it's a cat and mouse game, and the mouse is going to win every time, and the hobo is the mouse. We hobos have been an organized subculture for many years, and we pass down information. I won't describe that type of information or how to get that information. The only way to get that information is to start hopping trains yourselves, become friends with other train hoppers, and eventually they'll get you this information. As far as other things, it comes with common sense from just hitting trains and having experience with train yards. You can, when I first started out, I looked at a train yard or I looked at a freight train. I had no idea where it was going, dude. And the freight yard was completely confusing to me. I would see like 20, 30, 40 different tracks, and I had no idea what each track did or what each train was doing. So now here I am, 11 years later, I can walk up to any train yard in America, watch it for about 5 minutes, and I can tell you everything pretty much is going on in that train yard. I can tell you when this train is about to leave, where this train is probably going, where it's going to stop at along the way, which train to hop, which train not to hop, where the bull is, which worker is cool to ask, just by sitting there and watching a train yard. So there's a learning curve that comes, and when you start taking trains that go the wrong way, or trains that drop you off in the middle of nowhere, that learning curve is going to be fast and it's going to be steep, and you better start learning or you better choose another mode of travel.
Though this steep learning curve doesn't just encompass train hopping, but just learning how to survive as well. We have to remember that this isn't an easy life and isn't a choice for everybody. In fact, the reason so many people chose this life is because they were seeking some kind of family that accepts them for who they are.
Most of us come from a situation where our family wasn't there for us, or our family went completely against us. And that's something that I ran into, and it's something that a lot of travelers run into. You know, we usually hit the road because we become some black sheep or something within our family. And one of the best things about entering this lifestyle is that travelers like us, whether you're a hobo, whether you're a vagabond, whether you're a rubber tramper, whether you're a backpacker, whether you're a train hopper, whether you're a hitchhiker, no matter who you are, we're all family to each other, and we all help each other out. Hey, if you need water, here's some water. Hey man, do you need a beer? Here's a beer. Do you need toilet tissue? Do you need socks? Do you need to find a place to camp tonight? Do you need to find food? We have each other's back, and it's such a strong family that we have. And it's amazing that people who are darting place to place, not a lot of access to communications and things like this, can provide a stronger family bond than, say, a regular family in America, which has access to communicating with each other, which you know, these people are sitting at home, they're sitting across the dinner table from their son or daughter, and they're not loving each other. And here we are hopping trains all across America, and we stay in contact with each other, and we're a family, and we have each other's backs. And I found more family on the road than I ever had back home.
Which leads us to an update from Rin. Last episode, we spoke to her while she was on lunch from her last day of work at Whole Foods. The next day, she planned on leaving town to meet Huck in Alabama, where she planned on learning the basics of the hobo lifestyle from him. She told us about her battle with depression, eating disorders, and how she wished to hit the road as the best means to conquer her mental illness. A lot has changed for her since the last time we spoke, so we'll hear from Rin right after a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is the world's leading provider of audiobooks with over 150,000 titles to choose from. Now, in the past, I've mentioned that you can get my audiobook without their permission, as narrated by me, or you can get the much more impressive Odyssey, as read by Ian McKellen. Yeah, that's right. Audible has really neat narrations and versions of so many different titles. One that I've recently found pretty impressive is World War Z. I'm not going to comment on the movie, but the audiobook is something else. Puffy Ghost, that's a Redditor, wrote in the r/audiobooks community this, and I quote, "For anyone who hasn't listened to this, do it. The voice acting and storytelling is fucking superb. A lot of effort went into making this, and it shows." End quote. Well, there you go. Don't take my word for it. Take Puffy Ghosts, World War Z audiobook, pretty spectacular. The cast on this includes Alan Alda, John Turturro, Rob Reiner, Mark Hamill, Alfred Molina, Simon Pegg, Henry Rollins, and even Martin Scorsese. So I would definitely recommend giving it a try, and it was really one of the best produced audiobooks I've heard in a long time. You can get one free audiobook, including World War Z, just by going to audible.com/upvoted. If you check it out, also be sure to let us know what you think on the subreddit. I want to make sure I'm recommending books that you all would enjoy, so go to audible.com/UPVOTED. You'll get your free audiobook and a 30-day free trial.
Hi, I'm Rin, and I was on the Vagabond episode of Upvoted, and I'm back with an update. It's almost like dreamlike, so it's kind of hard to remember everything that just went down. I guess the start was right after I had talked to you. It was my last day of work, and I had just left a note for my parents saying I was going to be gone for a week, and they somehow got into my Facebook account and read that I had quit my job, and somehow found out that I was going to be hanging out with hobos and vagabonds. So while I was in Atlanta talking to my sister, I get a call from my mom, and she was not very happy to find out that I had just quit my job and up and left.
So Rin ended up hitting the road for a short period of time. She met Huck in Alabama, traveled to New Orleans, and met tons of cool people along the way. Yet her family put increasing pressure on her to come back home. During the interview, she was actually at her parents' home in North Carolina, and as you can imagine, they had some difficult interactions.
When I got home, as soon as I walked in through the door, my mom had saw me, but she didn't say anything. She didn't talk to me. She just kind of ignored me. And the same thing, I think, kind of with my dad. And then eventually I just kind of walked up to him and was like, so you guys just not going to talk to me? And my mom was like, I don't even know. And somehow we just finally sat down and kind of talked, and I think they were just kind of freaked out that I had just up and quit my job, and I was off with someone that they had never heard of before. And apparently I didn't hear it from them, but an aunt thought that me and Dakota were in love and we were off to go get hitched or something. But obviously that was not the case. It ended on a pretty good note, or my conversation with my parents. Because I know they care about me and they're just worried about me. But it's still kind of depressing because I know they don't quite understand the way I see the world or why I want to do this. So it makes it difficult. And then, yeah, I have been receiving cards from aunts and my grandmother and sisters, just being like, what's going on? Are you okay? And why'd you quit your job? And then like a few days ago, I received flowers from my aunt and a note that said, we love you, don't go. So, I don't know, I think maybe they have the wrong idea that I'm just going off and not being safe. And I think my one aunt was trying to tell me not to get into drugs, and like that's not it at all. I want to travel. That's all.
But for Rin, staying at home isn't an option.
I need to go because it was fine for a week that I've been here, and then I started to just get really bored again, and I fell back into that same routine, and I started getting really depressed again, and so I had to start taking my antidepressants, which I really don't want to do, and I just was thinking that I know the reason that I get depressed is because I'm staying in the situation that I don't like because I'm worried about hurting others. And I know that staying here and taking antidepressants and working it's not making me happy right now. I don't know if being on the road for life is something that I need, but I need to get out right now and see some change, meet people, I think mostly. That was one of the things that I really liked about being on the road is the guy I was with would just ask people, hey, we're trying to get to Asheville, can you lend us some money? And it amazed me how many people were more than willing to help us out, and it kind of just gave me some hope for humanity.
And another thing that really touched Rin as well was all the positive feedback she had heard from all of you in the r/Upvoted community.
I think I had mentioned how I thought I sounded really ditzy, and a lot of people were like, no, you just sounded really real, and I got a message, I think maybe 2 or 3 messages from people who had also been struggling with depression and eating disorders, and I kind of wish I had it in front of me right now, but they were basically just saying that it was really nice to just hear my story and realize that there is someone out there that is struggling with something there as well. And was really great to hear. I mean, not that they're struggling, obviously, but that's why I like being open about my struggles, is so that other people feel that they can talk to me and that they aren't alone.
And that is what it's all about. That conversation with Rin happened about a month ago. We just checked in with her and she's planning on hitting the road next week. We wish her all the best. Huck is currently on his way to Alaska to work on a fishing boat, and he's actually joined by several members of r/Vagabond.
There's about 12 others that are going up there also. Some of them are working in canneries, some of them are going to be working at the resorts, some are going to be working on the boats, some are going to be working as tour guides up there. It's just all kinds of work up there in the summer. And any of you guys that's not members of our Vagabond need a job or anything, come over to our Vagabond and we can hook you up with a job in Alaska.
Huck will also be taking on another big adventure coming up. He plans to travel all the way to South America.
I started out just looking for a hitchhiking partner on our Vagabond, which is a really common thing that happens over in our community. But instead of finding one partner, I ended up finding about a dozen partners. And I started thinking, you know, why don't we just all get a bus and go from Alaska all the way down to Argentina, you know, all the way across the Western Hemisphere. I don't know if this has ever been done before, but our Vagabond's going to give it their best shot. But right now, we're kind of still in the early stages. We're wanting to go in September. We're still inviting people out there. If you'd like to join us, come along. If you'd like to film it, come along. If you'd like to blog it or whatever, we could definitely use that kind of support. Also, if you guys got any donations you could throw our way, we've got to buy a bus. We're going to need gas and food along the way. A lot of us are throwing in money, but we could also use the support of others. And we plan to volunteer and help out communities the entire way from Alaska to Argentina. And not only are we giving back to the communities will also be providing us with food and shelter a lot of the time. So it's also making the trip a lot more economical.
The last thing Huck felt it was incredibly important to address was some insight into a lot of the negative comments people had sent him about being homeless.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that really hate us, and a lot of them are just trying to justify their own positions in life. And I think that, you know, in a way, the vagabond lifestyle just flies directly in the face of everything they've been conventionally taught or trained to do so in their life. And I think it comes to a point to where they don't understand why we get to be free while they're so tied down. And I think that creates a deep divide, and it causes a lot of people to view us with envy or hate or just simply misunderstanding or overlooking our subculture as a whole. And you know, when it comes down to everything, it's just easier for everyone to label us all as bums as opposed to looking at us as who we are. You know, we're vagabonds, we're rubber traps, we're hobos, we're backpackers, we're squatters. You know, we're not all just bums, and that's what America needs to understand. And I don't think America is really ready for it.
If you want to stay in touch with Huck, check out r/Vagabond or his new website, ontheroadandrails.com. Squarespace, one of our sponsors, actually heard part one with him and hooked him up with a free website so he could have a place to update all of us. The site again is called ontheroadandrails.com. This episode left me with a lot to think about. How do we discuss mental illness, race, and bullying? How do we talk about who we are, our ability to pursue happiness, and our role in this society? I don't have all the answers, but it's only going to be through respectful discussion and taking a moment to hear each other's stories that we might get a little closer to finding out. So, on that note, we'll see you again next week on Upvoted by Reddit.